Hello watch enthusiasts and welcome to Watch Chronicler. Olisipo is a curious word. Whilst simply meaning the capital of Portugal, Lisbon, it gives an archaic twist as just what the Romans called it. This historical influence perfectly represents the new Borealis Olisipo, a watch which brings influences together in a wonderfully 80s looking package, a rarely remembered time for watches, but nonetheless an important one. Aside from the somewhat decadent connotations of watchmaking during this period, this was a time of angular cases, steel bracelets and golden detailing, but also far more rugged and technical watches as seen in various action movies of the period. However, designs during this period were returning to relative normality when compared to the looks of the 1970s. Through its details and approach, the Olisipo brings back the charming side of this style in a package which is very wearable and quite interesting. Before I begin this video, I would like to make the statement that the watch in this video was lent to me for the period of the review. I've also not been paid for any narrative or positive feedback given in this video, nor in the written version of this review. Whilst you're here, why not like, share and subscribe to support Watch Chronicler and see more content here in future? Also follow us on Instagram for photos and head over to watchchronicler.com to see full articles on new releases, the history of watches and an in-depth version of this video with a full specs list. Beginning with this Dive Watch's 316L stainless steel case, we're given a considerable 300 metre water resistance, despite only a 12mm thickness, courtesy of a screw-down crown, an appropriate feature for a dive watch, and a solid case back. To make the watch manageable on most wrists, the sizing has been chosen wisely at 40mm in diameter by a short 47mm lug-to-lug length, which is important for a relatively flat watch like this one. Additionally, the bezel adds remarkably little heft to the overall package, as its brushed ceramic insert rises conically to the sapphire crystal rather than adding a cumbersome appendage to the case. A similar approach has been taken with the caseback, which, rather than being open with an exhibition style of caseback, it reduces the thickness of the watch rather attractively with an embossed mermaid on a flat steel caseback, thus echoing the design of the brand, but also without increasing the thickness. The case itself is very angular in form and a mix of brushed and polished finishes. The quality of these finishes and the definition of them is very impressive as the predominant treatment is brushing. However, much more has been achieved with finishing, as the longitudinal brushing on the mid-case lengthens a rather short form, and a change in grain direction separates the top of the lugs from the rest of the case. The result is a very balanced and sharp look. The unidirectional coin-edged 120-click bezel also receives help from wide polished bevels down the case, thus giving a superior grip. In a wise decision, Borealis have brushed the bezel rim to camouflage scratches and really help the watch age more gracefully. The crown has been displaced to 345 in an attempt to reduce its vulnerability whilst not impeding access, an aim which has been achieved very well, as it's very unlikely to catch a crown in this particular position. Now, I would normally leave the bracelet to the very end of the video, but this one really should be presented with the watch. This dive watch is fitted with a Rolex-style President bracelet, the obvious halfway house between the Oyster and Jubilee bracelets on either end of a scale of durability to luster. This is executed with fully brushed links to match the more technical style of the case. However, at first glance the rounded and delicate President bracelet which we're used to seeing in gold is hardly the obvious choice for a serious dive watch. However, with angular end links which blend into the case and a fully brushed finish, the pairing looks brilliant. Additionally, the openness of the links means that the wrist can breathe easily and screws off at ease of sizing which just wouldn't be there if it used pins and collars. From an aesthetic perspective, this bracelet and case combination creates a look not dissimilar from the Seiko or Hoya dive watches of the 1980s, something which I rather like, but with modern construction and manufacturing. The clasp is more rudimentary, with a friction fit and fold over, and only a basic micro adjustment, yet this still feels entirely reasonable for a watch of this particular price. It's equivalent to the options from, amongst others, Steinhardt, and so does represent quality, but not necessarily complexity. Looking under the flat 3mm thick internally anti-reflective sapphire crystal, we're greeted with a rather complex dial. The base of this dial is a glossy coated surface which has been embossed with a scale pattern. This is the surface onto which the metal baton indices have been applied. Around this base of the dial is a raised and matte chapter ring which serves to frame the dial. The hands are relatively simple and straight in form, thus erring further on the dressy side than a robust dive watch. Despite this, their significant variation in length makes them perfectly easy to differentiate, except when lighting conditions make them blend into the dial. This is however more of an issue for the white dial variant, as opposed to the full range of colours. Otherwise this watch comes with colours varying from green to orange and blue to teal. Amongst these models the hands vary from black to silver and gold, as is seen on this particular model. For me the golden colour suits the white model rather well and adds to the 1980s touches, which I think build the spirit of this watch. Unseen behind the case back, we have a movement which fits both the price range and mechanical needs of such a watch, with long-term serviceability, durability and functionality. Instead of an ETA 2824 from Switzerland, this watch uses a Miyota 9015, the first affordable Japanese movement which really offers an alternative. Whilst Seiko movements have brilliant specifications, rising prices and a lower beat rate really do keep them away from the ETA style of movement. The 9015 on the other hand gives a high 4 Hz beat rate, the smoothest hacking and hand winding in this price range, and greater reliability. Being a more modern movement, it also doesn't suffer some existing weaknesses in the ETA 2824's design, such as failures in the automatic winding assembly, whilst keeping a 42-hour power reserve and quick set date features. All in all, this makes for a very sensible choice for Borealis, and one which should satisfy any user, with good reliability and a really very high quality build. When put on my 7-inch wrist, this watch makes for a comfortable experience due to those case bevels which help the whole piece to sit very low. The bracelet, whilst relatively heavy, doesn't catch hairs due to its wide gaps between each link, and the deployment sits flat against the wrist due to its simple build. Most importantly, the crown does not dig into the wrist, whilst the proportions appear pleasing for my particular wrist size. All things considered, I'd be comfortable recommending this watch to anyone with a wrist size of 6 inches or above, but I think below that size the flat shape of the case and the weight of the bracelet just wouldn't work in terms of being comfortable for daily use. Therefore, all in all, this watch is able to offer a really great deal for $390 plus VAT if you live in the EU. The specifications are promising and the execution really is excellent. Of course I could nitpick with regards to the dial being a little bit too cluttered for my liking, and also the fact that the bezel doesn't quite meet the crystal in terms of levels. But I must say, when compared to the competition, the quality is a very fair match, and the design is rather different, which is always something difficult to pull off. As a result, if you enjoyed the looks of watches such as the Seiko SKX, consider this an appeal to the 1980s predecessors of these designs, the Seiko 7002 or Hoya 980. In short, there are much worse ways to spend your money on a budget-friendly dive watch, especially with the claims being made by this watch and the fact that it's able to deliver on all counts. But tell me what you thought of this video down below, and like, share and subscribe to see more on this channel, and head over to watchchronicler.com for the full article and much more. This is Armand from watchchronicler.com, out.